Okay, so here I'm just applying some ready mix grout to some tile that we laid the previous day. I'm using an economy rubber mount float. It's actually really important to use a really good grouting sponge for a project like this. So the first thing I'm going to do is take off all the little spacers that we had to keep the tile separated. Those spacers are really important because they keep everything looking really lined up and straight. And then I'm just going to use the trowel to pull out a little bit of the grout. And then, as you can see, like I'm just pushing the grout really far into the spaces. Most of the grout actually goes into the spaces. The little bit less is left over on the tile, you just want to scrape that off as much as possible and then push it back into the joints. And then when I'm using the bucket, I'm really squeezing it out. I want to have pretty much no water on the sponge. As you can see there, it's getting into the wood a little bit, but because of that vinyl plank flooring, it's really not going to be a problem. I know I'm not going to stain it. I didn't treat the vinyl plank flooring at all because it wasn't necessary, and then you'll see at the end it cleans up perfectly fine. So at a certain point, the grout got too narrow, so I couldn't reach in with the trowel. So I started using the paint stick to get in there and pull it out, and that actually worked really good because I could just get about enough out per gap in the tile to make it so it fit really well. Here I'm just changing the water. It's important to change the water a lot. If I had somebody helping me out, it would have been great to just have them constantly changing the water, because clean water makes it much easier. So if you've got a system for clean water, that's the best thing to do. When I first started the project, I didn't know whether or not I needed to put grout in the corners, and so you'll see that's why I've got all the grout missing along this project. It wasn't until after I had finished doing the majority of it that I realized that the corners would be necessary because the siding that we're going to use against the wall isn't thick enough to cover that space. So now that I've got all the grout in, I'm just really focusing on washing it off, because I know the more of that grout that you can get off of the tiles while it's still wet, the better. But at the same time, you don't want to push into the joints. This is at the point where I've realized that I pretty much need to do all the side joints. So now I'm just using the paint stick to push the grout into the corners there. It doesn't have a huge amount of space, but that's only going to show a little bit because of the metal siding that we're going to use for behind the stove. Cool, now all the grout's in, so now I'm just really washing it down with the sponge. Okay, so now it's a few hours later. I waited 4 hours for this stuff to cure, and I think that that's about exactly the right amount of time. It says so on the instructions too, so you can follow the instructions. Veronica's helping me with a rag. She's using a rag and I'm using the sponge. They both have their benefits. The rag was better for getting it off of the tile, but it wasn't as delicate for in the grout corners, whereas the sponge was harder to get it off the tiles, but it was better for the overall cleanup. Yeah, and it really starts coming together at this point. You can see that the tiles are looking beautiful, and the grout really makes it so that they stand out. I skip a few little points in here because Veronica kind of was in the way of the camera, but that's because it was the only way she could reach. So, you know, it turned out really great. As you can see, the tile looks really good against the background, and it's just a great project overall. So grouting's really fun, especially with a small area like this. I've done really large areas, and that's really annoying. So this is a cool little project, but it turned out great. Thanks for watching.